In this video series, we're going to be looking at Chapter 3 for C#, Processing Data. So we're going to have a look at reading input from text controls. We'll be looking at variables, what type of variables can be entered in through their data types, calculating, inputting, and outputting numeric values. In this example, formatting numbers to different types using a different, what they refer to as a string method. If users make an error, how can we handle that? Constants are used from time to time in programming, declaring variables as a field, math functions, etc. Now to do this, I've set up a program inside of the Blackboard site, and it's called Chapter 3. It's an in-class exercise that you guys are going to design with me here through these video series and in class. And this is basically what it looks like. So when we first start one of these out, what I've done is I've tried to come up with a practical solution for each of these that represents what basically that's in the book as well. So the purpose of this program, as you can pretty much gather, in this first example, you can type in your first name, your last name, and press the Tab key or push the Enter key, and it basically concatenates the two input boxes and outputs the results. So that's reading input with a text control box is 3.1 right there, and pretty straightforward. So that's the purpose. The logic, we can kind of figure out how that logic works by just taking whatever was in here and here, add them together, and put them in here when I click on that button. The second program here deals with looking at variables, and the way that this one was designed was, for example, if we type in some information in here into our text boxes, we're going to actually store all that data into variables and then basically do essentially what we did in the first example, but slightly different in the coding area. All right, now moving on from there, we're going to take a look at performing calculations. And calculations, you've all probably worked part-time or full-time, and then you can enter in your values, and basically you can see what's going to happen. We're going to multiply those two together, so we know what the logic of this program is going to do. And also the logic, it's outputting the results so that we've got a different number format. So this is going to format it to currency and concatenate a message at the same time. So the program's getting a little more complicated where we're calculating and we're outputting all that. Now in this example here, we're going to read some input. I'll just put ones in here, and then it outputs the result. It's by summing up the four boxes. Now if we did something that was, let's say, a mistake, in this example I put in an A in number 2 and pushed sum, it's going to pop up with an error box as invalid entry, try again. And what we're talking about is 3.7 here, the simple exception handling, by trying to catch any errors to prevent input errors. They call that GIGO, garbage in, and what do you get for output is garbage out. That makes no sense. The next one here is looking at a constant. So the constant is 3.8, and we're going to take a value of, let's say, 1,000. We're going to multiply it by a consistent constant of 1.25%, and it's going to do a calculation of what that would equal. And again, we're repeating a little bit of the code that we did above to practice. So these build on each other as we're going through. Now, in this example here, accumulate is we're going to take a variable and we're going to store it, and then we're going to keep adding to this and keep adding and adding and adding. So that's the concept of how an accumulator works. And then we're going to look at using math functions. You can see here, let's say we got 30. What's the tangent of 30, or the cosine of that big number, and the sine and the pi? So we'll be looking at all of those math functions in here. And we'll be looking at other details in the GUI interface, and then start looking at how to fix the logic behind this, which they call the debugger. We'll be introducing that concept in this chapter. So that's pretty much the summary of how the logic and how this program is going to work. So I will basically see you guys in the next video.